A poor janitor mistook him for a broke backpacker, not knowing he was the millionaire owner of the cafe. And what he did next surprised everyone. Before we begin the story, leave a comment telling us which city you are watching from. The glass door of Parson Coffee House reflected the dark San Francisco streets at 11:45 p.m. Londyn Hanson was inside, alone, pushing a mop across the marble floors in long, tired strokes. Her teal apron was spotted with water, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who'd been cleaning since closing time. Outside, a figure appeared at the locked door. A man in his 30s, with a weathered green Henley shirt clinging to his frame, faded jeans with worn knees, and a leather backpack with fraying straps hanging from his shoulders. Several days of stubble covered his jaw. His eyes looked exhausted, desperate even, as he peered through the glass into the warmly lit cafe. He knocked softly, then harder. Londyn looked up from her mopping. She paused, studying him through the glass. Most people in her position would have ignored him. Just another homeless person trying to get inside, another problem to avoid. The cafe was closed. Policy was clear. No unauthorized visitors after hours. But Londyn didn't see a problem. She saw a person. She saw herself, someone the world had learned to overlook, someone invisible to those who mattered. Without hesitation, Londyn set down her mop and walked to the door. She unlocked it, the click echoing in the empty cafe. "Hi," she said with a gentle smile as she opened the door. "Are you okay? You look freezing." The man blinked, clearly surprised. He'd expected to be turned away, maybe even yelled at, not welcomed. I just needed to get out of the cold for a minute," he said, his voice rough. "I didn't mean to bother you." "You're not bothering me," Londyn said, stepping aside. "Come on in, warm up for a bit." The man hesitated at the threshold, water from the evening fog dripping from his clothes onto the spotless floor Londyn had just mopped. He looked at the puddle forming, embarrassed. "Don't worry about that," Londyn said, reading his expression. "I mop this floor 3 times a night anyway. Come sit down." She guided him to a seat at the counter, then disappeared into the back room. When she returned, she carried a paper bag. Her dinner, leftovers she'd packed from home that morning. "Here," she said, setting it in front of him. "Turkey sandwich and an apple. It's not much, but you look like you could use a real meal." "I can't take your dinner," the man protested weakly, but his eyes betrayed his hunger. "You can and you will," Londyn said firmly but kindly. "I already ate earlier." It was a lie, but a necessary one. "Let me make you some coffee, too. A real cup, not that instant stuff." As the espresso machine hummed to life, Londyn worked with practiced efficiency. She placed a perfect cappuccino in front of him, the kind that cost $8 during business hours, and watched as he wrapped his cold hands around the warm cup. While he ate, Londyn quietly pulled something from her apron pocket. A small mason jar labeled "Tips" in faded marker. She counted out a crumpled $10 bill, smoothing it carefully, then slid it across the counter toward him. "There's a shelter 2 blocks down on Hayes Street," she said softly. "This should cover a bed for the night. They're good people there. Tell them Londyn sent you, okay?" The man stared at the money, then at her face. Something changed in his expression, a deep emotion Londyn couldn't quite identify. His eyes darkened with what looked like surprise, gratitude, and something else. Something that made his breath catch. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice unsteady. "I know," Londyn replied with simple honesty. "But look, we're all in this world together, you know. Sometimes all someone needs is for one person to care, even just a little." She offered her hand with a warm smile. "My name is Londyn, by the way, Londyn Hanson." And if you need to come by again tomorrow night, you can. I work the night shift. Don't mind the policy. Everyone deserves a safe place to be." The man shook her hand, feeling the warmth and steadiness of her grip despite the calluses from years of cleaning work. "Greg," he said simply. "My name is Greg." "Nice to meet you, Greg," Londyn said sincerely. "Now finish that coffee before it gets cold. And if you need anything else, directions, resources, whatever, just ask, okay?" Narrator breaks the fourth wall to reveal truth to audience. What Londyn Hanson didn't know, she had no idea, was that the broke backpacker she had just helped was actually Gregory Parson, the 35-year-old millionaire owner of that very cafe, and the entire Parson coffeehouse chain that stretched across 30 locations. Gregory had come in disguise to discover who among his employees had genuine compassion, who would treat a stranger with dignity when that stranger appeared to have nothing, and he had just found his answer, sitting at that counter, sipping the cappuccino made with such care. Gregory Parson smiled, a real smile he hadn't given in years. This janitor had just given him her last $10, her dinner, her humanity, and in that moment, something inside him changed forever. Gregory came back the next night, and the night after that. By the third evening, Londyn had stopped being surprised when she saw his face appear at the glass door around midnight. She'd simply smile, unlock it, and wave him inside while the mop bucket sat waiting in the corner. "You're going to get me fired one of these days," she said, but there was no real worry in her voice. Just warmth. "I can leave if—" Gregory started, but she cut him off. "Don't you dare. Sit. I made extra dinner tonight." And so it became their routine. Gregory would sit at the counter while Londyn worked, the sound of water sloshing in the bucket mixing with their voices in the empty cafe. He told her he'd been a software developer once, that his startup had collapsed spectacularly, taking his apartment and savings with it. That he was too ashamed to tell his family, too proud to go home with nothing. The lies tasted bitter on his tongue, but Londyn's response made them worse. "I dropped out of high school at 17, she said quietly, scrubbing at a stubborn stain near the window. "My mom got sick, really sick. Someone had to take care of her and my dad wasn't in the picture, so I left school, got whatever jobs I could find." She paused, wringing out the mop. "She died 2 years ago, and now I'm trying to save up for my GED, but it's slow going." "How much have you saved?" Gregory asked. $3,200 l'entrée. Operating with a mix of pride and exhaustion. "Only 12,000 more to go for community college. At this rate, I'll be 30 before I can afford it." Every night she shared her packed dinner with him. Sandwiches, leftover pasta, sometimes just crackers and cheese. She showed him a hand-drawn map she kept folded in her apron. Food banks marked with stars, free clinics with crosses, day labor offices circled in red. "This is Survival 101, she explained. "You can get a hot meal at St. Anthony's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The clinic on mission doesn't ask questions. And if you need quick cash, the construction day labor place opens at 5 a.m. One Saturday during her break, she took him to a community garden tucked behind a church. "This is Marcus," she said, introducing Gregory to a wiry man with graying hair and gentle eyes. "He helps run this place now, but 2 years ago I met him sleeping behind a dumpster." Marcus shook Gregory's hand firmly. "Londyn saved my life. Literally. Got me into transitional housing. Helped me find work. Now I'm paying it forward." On their walks back to the cafe, Gregory would help Londyn study for her GED. They'd sit on the night bus, her practice book open between them. His explanations for algebraic equations, surprisingly patient. "Why are you so good at math?" she asked one night. Used to be good at a lot of things, he said carefully, before everything fell apart. You're still good at things, Londyn said, looking directly at him. You're good at listening, at seeing people. That matters more than equations. She hesitated, then added softly, You're not invisible to me, Greg. The words hit him like a physical blow. By week 3, Gregory had experienced things he'd only read about in reports. A night when the shelter was genuinely full, the gnawing ache of real hunger, the way strangers looked through him as if he didn't exist. And through it all, Londyn was there, sharing her world, her dreams, her fierce hope. I want to be a social worker, she told him one morning as dawn crept through the faikakis. Help people like you, like Marcus, like me before someone helped my mom. Gregory sat there watching her face glow with purpose and realized something terrifying. In 3 weeks with this janitor, he'd learned more about humanity than in 35 years of wealth. And when she found out the truth, it would destroy her. The GED practice book sat open on the counter, its pages worn from use. Londyn frowned at a problem about quadratic equations, while Gregory leaned over her shoulder, explaining it for the 3rd time. I don't understand why X has to equal 2 different things, she said, frustrated. That doesn't make sense. Because it's asking where the curve crosses the axis, Gregory said patiently. Think of it like finding 2 different paths to the same destination. Easy for you to say. You're a tech genius. Was, he corrected quickly, the lie automatic now? And you're brilliant at English. That essay you wrote last night about social justice? I've read academic papers that weren't half as compelling. Londyn's cheeks flushed with pleasure, and Gregory felt his chest tighten. They'd started sharing coffee from the taco truck that parked on the corner at 3 a.m. It cost $1.50 for a large cup that tasted like burnt rubber. But sitting on the curb together, shoulders touching, Gregory found himself saying, This is better than anything we serve here. Liar, Londyn laughed. A spa, but I appreciate the sentiment. She took him to the Friday community dinner at the church basement. 20 people crammed around folding tables, sharing donated casseroles and day-old bread. Londyn knew everyone's names, everyone's stories. An elderly woman recovering from eviction, a young mother whose car had become her home, a veteran waiting for disability benefits. You see me, Londyn said to him later as they walked back through empty streets. Not the uniform, not the mop, me. That's rare. Gregory opened his mouth. The confession was right there. I'm not who you think I am. I own that cafe. I've been lying to you since the beginning. But fear choked the words before they could form. One night, she took him to an abandoned building on Potrero Hill. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls. But through Londyn's eyes, Gregory could see something else. This is my dream, she said, walking through the empty space with her arms spread wide. Someday, I'll open a community center here, a place where people can get help without judgment, food, resources, counseling, somewhere people don't have to prove they deserve basic dignity. She turned to face him, her eyes shining in the dim light filtering through the dirty windows. Gregory took a step toward her, drawn by something he couldn't name. Their faces were inches apart. He could see every fleck of gold in her brown eyes. He almost kissed her. But the weight of his deception stopped him cold. He pulled back, pretending to examine the wall instead. It'll be beautiful, he managed to say. Later that week, during her break, they sat on facing café benches. Londyn pulled her knees up to her chest, studying him in the fluorescent light. People think being poor makes you invisible, she said quietly. But I see everyone. The woman who sleeps in the doorway on mission. The guy who collects cans from the recycling bins. The kid who steals day-old pastries from the bakery. I see them because I know what it's like to be unseen. She smiled. Maybe that's my superpower. It is, Gregory said, his throat tight. You have the rarest gift in the world, Londyn. You see people's humanity when everyone else has learned to look away. She reached across the space between the benches and took his hand. They sat like that until exhaustion pulled them into sleep, still holding on to each other. Gregory woke first, watching her peaceful face in the pre-dawn darkness. And the truth hit him with devastating clarity. He was in love with her. Completely, impossibly in love. And when she found out who he really was, she would never, ever forgive him. The lie had grown too big to contain, but the thought of losing her was worse than any truth. Week 4, Tuesday morning, 5:30 a.m. Londyn was wiping down the executive tables near the window when she found the magazine someone had left behind. Business Insider, the glossy cover catching the early light. She almost tossed it in the recycling bin, but something made her pause. The face on the cover stopped her heart, clean-shaven, expensive charcoal suit, standing confidently in front of a cafe, this cafe. But it was the eyes she recognized. Those same eyes that had looked at her with such gratitude, such vulnerability. Gregory Parson, building coffee empire with compassion, CEO's hands-on approach. The magazine slipped from her trembling hands and hit the floor with a slap that echoed through the empty space. She picked it up with shaking fingers. 30 cafe locations, $50 million net worth. Known for innovative innovative undercover investigations to ensure employee integrity and compassion. The broke backpacker was her boss. Every word she'd spoken, every vulnerability she'd shared, every moment she'd given him her last dollar or her only meal. It had all been part of his test. She'd been his experiment. Londyn stood there as the sun rose over San Francisco, watching her reflection in the window glass. A janitor in a teal apron, holding evidence of the biggest betrayal of her life. And for the first time in years, she wanted to disappear completely. She was waiting outside when Gregory arrived that evening. Still in her street clothes, hair down, magazine clutched in her white-knuckled grip. He saw her face and stopped walking. The color drained from his features. "Who are you really?" Her voice was eerily calm. "Londyn, let me explain. Who are you?" "My name is Gregory Parson. I know what you own," she cut him off, her voice breaking. "What I don't know is who I've been talking to for 4 weeks. Was any of it real, or was I just data for your little social experiment? It wasn't like that. You watched me scrape together dollar bills to help you," Londyn said, and now tears were streaming down her face. "I shared my food when I barely had enough. I told you things I've never told anyone, about my mother, my dreams, my shame about dropping out. Was it fun? Did I pass your test? Please, just listen." "I'm listening now. Explain to me how this was anything other than cruel." Gregory stepped forward, hands raised. "I needed to know who had real compassion versus who treated people like trash when they thought no one important was watching. My board said I was too soft, that I didn't understand business. I wanted to prove them wrong." "So, you treated my compassion like a social experiment?" Londyn's laugh was hollow. "Used my poverty as your research project? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" "I fell in love with you," Gregory said desperately. "That part was real." "You don't even know me." Londyn's voice was flat now, empty. You know a janitor you studied like a lab rat. You know the character in your little morality play. That's not true. I wasn't testing you, Greg. Gregory, whatever your name is. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was just being human. That's the difference between us. Within 48 hours, the security footage was everywhere. Millionaire CEO's secret homeless test. The comments were vicious. Gold digger saw her chance versus he exploited her poverty for PR. Londyn was fired for policy violations. Her face was on every local news station. She couldn't find work. Everyone recognized her. Gregory tried calling, texting, showing up at her apartment. Please, let me make this right. You can't fix this with money, Londyn said through the cracked door. You can't buy back my trust. She closed the door. Gregory stood in the hallway, knowing he had no right to knock again. He'd won his test and lost everything that mattered. 4 weeks felt like 4 years. Londyn's savings account dropped below 3 digits. Rent was due. Her landlord had knocked on her door with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Saw you on the news with that rich guy. Guess you can afford the new rate, $1,800 instead of $12. She couldn't. Every job application ended the same way. Recognition in the interviewer's eyes. Oh, you're the girl from that video. Then polite rejection. We'll be in touch. They never were. On a Thursday afternoon, Londyn found herself standing in line at St. Anthony's Food Bank. The same place where she used to volunteer, handing out bags of groceries with a smile. Now she was on the receiving end, avoiding eye contact, shame burning her throat. At night, alone in her apartment, the question circled like a vulture. Was my kindness foolish? Should I have been harder, colder? Maybe the world had been trying to teach her a lesson all along. Maybe compassion was just another word for stupid. Gregory's business partner slammed a folder on his desk. 3 investor deals. Gone. Your little social experiment cost us millions. But Gregory barely heard him. He was staring at a photo on his phone, Londyn, laughing at something he'd said, taken secretly during one of their late-night conversations. He'd become exactly what he'd thought he was fighting, someone who used people. That night, Gregory did something he should have done from the beginning. He slept on the streets. No cameras, no observers, no test, just cold concrete, hunger, and the terrifying vulnerability of being truly invisible. He understood finally what he'd put Londyn through, not the poverty. He couldn't replicate years of struggle in one night, but the violation of trust, the cruelty of making someone's humanity into a performance. Compassion wasn't something to test. It was something to honor. Marcus found Londyn on her 3rd visit to the food bank. The formerly homeless man she'd helped get into transitional housing took one look at her face and pulled her aside. No, he said firmly, you don't get to give up. Marcus, I can't. You saved my life. You taught me that dignity isn't earned, it's inherent. You think I'm going to watch you forget your own lesson? He squeezed her shoulders. I know someone at Street Hope Alliance. They're hiring outreach workers. I already told them about you. 2 days later, Londyn had a job doing exactly what she'd dreamed of, helping people who'd been forgotten by everyone else. Meanwhile, Gregory made the changes he should have made years ago. Every janitor in his company got $25 an hour with full benefits. The Dignity Initiative launched. Free meals for anyone who needed them. Bathrooms open to the public. Homeless liaisons at every location. He established the Second Chance Scholarship Fund for service workers pursuing education. He went on record. I was wrong. I treated human dignity like a social experiment. I'm spending the rest of my life making it right. Then he started showing up at Street Hope Alliance, every Tuesday and Thursday evening, serving meals, mopping floors, listening to stories. He never approached Londyn, never asked for acknowledgement. Just worked. Londyn watched him from across the room. Is this real or another performance? Her coworker shook her head. He's been here 2 months, never misses a shift. Journalists tried to interview him. He refused. Just keeps showing up. In the 3rd month, Marcus handed Londyn an envelope. This came for you. Inside, scholarship paperwork. Full ride to community college for social work. Selected based on her community service record and recommendations from people she'd helped over the years. Did he? Londyn started. He facilitated the application, Marcus said gently. But you earned this. Every word in those recommendation letters is about what you did, who you are. This is yours, Londyn. For the first time in months, she let herself hope. 3 months after the confrontation, Londyn was sitting in her Introduction to Social Work class when the professor said something that made her chest tighten. The greatest gift we can give another human being is to see them, truly see them, when the rest of the world has looked away. She thought of Gregory, still showing up every Tuesday and Thursday at Street Hope Alliance, still keeping his distance, still doing the work. After her shift that evening, Londyn found him wiping down tables in the community room. She took a breath. Can we talk? Gregory's hands stilled. He nodded, not trusting his voice. They sat outside on a bench facing the street. The same comfortable silence between them that used to exist before everything shattered. I've been angry for so long, Londyn began, staring at her hands. But Marcus asked me something. If someone genuinely changes, do they deserve a second chance? I told him yes, so I have to practice what I preach. Gregory started to speak, but she held up a hand. What you did was wrong. You exploited my vulnerability, made my poverty into your test. You took the most honest parts of me and turned them into data. She finally looked at him. But I've watched you for 3 months. You're not performing anymore. You're actually doing the work. I don't expect forgiveness, Gregory said quietly. I just need you to know, you changed my life. I thought I was testing compassion, but you taught me what it actually means. Not something to measure or evaluate, but something to honor. He swallowed hard. That scholarship is yours. You earned it through years of helping people when you had nothing yourself. I just opened a door you'd already built. I know, Londyn said softly. And I fell in love with you, Gregory continued, his voice breaking. That part was real. Everything else was cowardice. Londyn was quiet for a long moment, watching cars pass on the street. I don't know if we can be what we almost were. Too much happened. Gregory nodded, accepting it. But maybe we can start over, she said. Honestly this time. No disguises, no tests. He looked at her, hope flickering cautiously in his eyes. Londyn extended her hand. I'm Londyn Hanson. I'm a janitor and a student, and someone who believes people deserve dignity. Gregory took her hand, holding it like the precious thing it was. I'm Gregory Parson. I'm a man who had everything and knew nothing until you showed me what actually matters. 6 months later, Londyn stood in her cap and gown, social work degree in hand, in front of the abandoned building on Potrero Hill. Except it wasn't abandoned anymore. The sign read, Hanson Community Center, where everyone belongs. Gregory stood beside her, not as a benefactor, but as a volunteer, wearing the same shirt as everyone else on staff. Every Parson coffee house now bore a simple plaque. Dignity isn't tested, it's honored. Inside the community center, they served meals side by side, equal partners, real partners. Londyn had achieved her dream, not because a millionaire handed it to her, but because she'd fought for it with the same compassion she'd always shown, even when the world tried to break her. And Gregory had learned the truth that would define the rest of his life. Wealth isn't what you own. It's how you treat people when they have nothing to offer you in return. That evening, as they locked up together, Londyn took his hand. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For changing, for showing me that people can." And in that moment, both of them understood. Dignity was never about the testing. It was always about the seeing,